I always say to couples, my aim is not to keep you together. The thing that I wanted to touch on, people's experiences of perimenopause, how it shows up in your relationship. But let's not forget that the symptoms, the experience, the physical, visceral experience that people have is very real. You add on it and neurodivergence, and that is through the roof. So my capacity to deal with crap is way lower because I am physically not feeling myself. Psychologically, your brain is shifting and changing, and emotionally, you are really asking a person with very low capacity to show up in areas of their lives that weren't working to begin with. Then you put in standard things that make a lot of us lose it. Laundry on the floor, or the mental load of having a home and family together being left to you. Do we still want to be with each other?
Welcome, love, to Wild Flow, the podcast for wild and wise women devoted to honoring your body's wisdom, reclaiming your cyclical power, and walking as a feminine leader in life, love, and through your soul work and purpose. I'm Charlotte Puanto, embodiment coach, ritual priestess, menstrual cycle educator, and feminine business mentor, here to guide soul-led women to step forward as their most magical, womb-awakened, authentic, and sovereign selves. On the podcast, we have rich and deep conversations with women I deeply admire who are leading the way in the reclamation of sacred feminine power. Ready for a new episode, my love? Let's flow. Today's conversation is one I know so many of you will feel deeply in your bodies. I'm joined by clinical psychotherapist Tracy Proud, and we're diving into the emotional terrain of perimenopause, specifically the rage that often rises during this powerful yet misunderstood phase of life. Tracy brings both clinical insight and lived experience. As a queer, neurodivergent woman, parent, and partner who's navigated trauma, loss, and hormonal upheaval. In this episode, we talk about how perimenopause can intensify emotional dysregulation, but especially for neurodivergent folks too, and how that individually and collectively can ripple through our relationships, how it can affect our parenting, the way we communicate, and the way that we explore the changes of the perimenopause years. This isn't a conversation about fixing your rage. It's really about honoring it and understanding it and learning to ride the tidal wave without burning everything down in the process. We explore practical and somatic tools for repair, how to stop labeling yourself as too much, and what emotional sovereignty can look like in the middle of a storm. It's about reaching out for support and building allies, a circle of trust around you. And instead of needing to navigate this all by yourself. Tracy is an incredible woman, and she's become a friend as well. In the past, we've both worked with each other, and I'm really happy to be bringing this conversation. Tracy is such a real person, and I just absolutely adore this about her and know that we're going to have a really incredible conversation. Let's dive in. Tracy Proud, my love, it is so good to have you on Wildflow Podcast. I'm so happy that you are here and that we are going to have this beautiful conversation together. So thank you for being here. How are you today, love?
Well, firstly, thank you. Thanks for hosting such an amazing resource for people. And thank you for allowing me to be a guest. I'm very excited. So I'm excited about being here. But you and I were chatting earlier about mood, and generally, I would say I am pretty low across the board at the moment. But, I'm sure most of your listeners can empathize with that and also have experience of feeling like that, and then getting up and still carrying on with your day and looking after whoever you're responsible for and blah, blah, blah. But yeah, I'm very, very glad to be here.
Well, thank you for being here with us, and thank you for your total honesty and just your humanity. And that's what I just love about you is you are so real. And it's this realness that we need to be connecting from and relating from rather than pretending everything's fine when it's not and having these conversations even when it's not like your shiniest day. So I really just love that you named that right from the top. And I'm really glad that you're here. Thank you.
Mm.
Mm.
Well, I was also mentioning to you that I had some other commitments today. And, I did a bit of an audit and I was like, which ones make me feel safe? Which ones are going to not deplete me? And I ended up with just you.
Oh, thank you. That's really, really lovely. I'm really glad that this feels like that space for
Mm.
you. Mm, yeah. So let's drop in with a little cycle check-in together, which will just allow us to feel into what's going on in our bodies and in the world and the earth and relate to how we're feeling. And for me, as always, such a beautiful way for me to drop in and just notice those things in relation to like, oh, what's going on? Oh, that's why. And for me, I've got my menstrual cycle is in full effect and I'm on day 6 today. So finished bleeding and just feeling like a little gentle energy rise back out of the old moon cave, the old like, don't talk to me, leave me alone kind of space. Sticking my little head out into the world again, but feeling like I want to go really tenderly. And I've been really feeling into like recently just how much lower my capacity is in my body and energy wise. And I'm sure there's hormonal as well as brain elements to that, as well as what's going on in with my family and just in the world as well. So I've been feeling like a really decreased capacity. And I've just decided again this cycle, but it feels even more clear that I just really need to pace myself more and be really mindful of simplifying even more. So I'm kind of walking into this cycle with a bit of a view of how can I keep things simple. So that's what I'm bringing today. That's where I'm at. And we are at winter solstice this week. So deepest, darkest day of the year in the Southern Hemisphere where you and I both are, despite both of us being Northern Hemisphere
Mhm.
birds. And I'm feeling it. I'm feeling like, and I'd love to know if you are, like, we both live quite locally to each other. So although it's a beautiful sunny day, as we're chatting in the morning, I'm just feeling the darkness and the coldness and the frost that we had this morning and like the freezing cold room that I'm sat in right now with my heater on and my blanket wrapped around me. And it's like, oh, so cocoon vibes as well. It's really, I can feel the slowness that my body wants to live by and just resist the speed of the world around me. So yeah, I'm feeling like there's some tenderness there and not mentally like bright and chirpy either. Just feeling a little bit like soft and tender and slow. So that's me. And I'd just love to ask Trace, where are you at in terms of like if you're to do a cycle check-in, like what are you noticing in your body or in the world around you? Like what's that like for you hormonally, perhaps
Mm.
too?
Well, firstly, thanks for sharing that because I was getting tears in my eyes going, I'm not alone.
Ah,
um, because historically, I've always loved winter season. In a month, in a year, like I'm a hibernator by nature, I reckon. I have this part of my personality which is loud. So I think people often think I'm an extrovert. But, when people say, "Oh, what are your hobbies?" I'm like, "Ooh, like, lying under a blanket." Can that be one?
same.
Um, but I've always loved the winter, but literally this past month where my mood has been very low for a month, and it feels very much like an internal hormonal, can't fix it with any external stuff. Um, I have been thinking to myself, well, it is winter, and this is maybe what a lot of people feel like in winter. I just haven't felt it before. Um, and when you ask where I'm at in my cycle, literally I was getting these images in my mind of like graphs going everywhere. And it's like, that's where I'm at. Um, because as you'll know, did some really life-changing work with you about, I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6. I'm terrible with details. Years ago.
I was just thinking, I don't actually know when it
What
was
it
either.
was.
Times passed by.
But it really skyrocketed my journey into healing from trauma, understanding without shame what my body had done to protect itself, and how that showed up in my cycle, in my organs, in my attitudes and psychology. But really, that work I did with you started it all. And when I first met with you, I was starting to track my cycle for the first time in my life because, again, you are amazing that you're doing this work where we can be given tools and language to be able to teach young folks about what cycles look like and what menstruation is and how it can be really beautiful and ritualistic and sacred. But that's not how I grew up. Probs similar to it's like,
Yeah.
this is the curse.
Mm.
So there was never any like, oh, I might, look at where I'm at in my cycle. It's just like, oh, I've got this problem for the rest of my life now. So when I met you, I'd started prior to that to track my cycle. And then a few years after that, I had realized that I had some physical conditions that meant a hysterectomy was a good idea for me. And since then, my perimenopause symptoms really kind of increased and I stopped tracking as much. Well, actually, no, that's not true. I just was tracking internally. I'm like, I know where I'm at. But more recently, I feel like it's gone a bit haywire again. So I never really know where I'm at. I used to be able to say, oh, I'm feeling sexy. I know I'm at that date. And now I want to rip everyone's heads off. I'm at that date. Um, and I've been thinking leading up to this, because I've been so low for about a month. And originally I was like, oh, I'm at that week of my cycle. And then I'm like, oh, it's been a week. It's been a couple of weeks. Um, and so I was thinking to myself, I wonder if my cycle is just changing quite dramatically. And I don't know. So yeah, where I would sense I'm at right now is in that very much hibernation mode. I've got low motivation, flat mood. Um, yeah, loving the idea of just being in bed all day long, every day.
I hear you, girlfriend. I hear you. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. Oh, it's so funny because I love being in bed as well. It's like my safe space. It's like I'll retreat there and just hide. And very much from a sensory point of view as well. It's like just needing that time and space from away from family and away from life and, love them. But I've been realizing recently how much I just can't stand noise. I'm very sensitive to noise. And so like bed and cocooning is just like, it's like, oh, I just want to be hiding away in there. And while it's winter as well, especially, I'm really feeling that. And it's quite interesting because my premenstrual phase of my last cycle, it seemed to like drag on. And it didn't. It was, the same as always. But it felt really, I was like, I was crankier than usual. I was more tired and I was more sensitive. And I was like, "Fuck." I just like, where's my period? I want that like relief almost and like the reset. Um, and like I say, now I'm on the other side of it. I'm still feeling like I'd actually rather be in bed today. And it's kind of like, do I actually have to do some work? I'm not getting that spring phase of like, la creativity. It's like, nah, nah. So in some ways, I'm feeling like a deeper longer lasting winter phase right now too as well. But obviously everyone's at different parts in their journeys, like with, like say, perimenopause and like hormones shifting and changing. So yeah, I'm sure it's probably a combination of all things. But I just wanted to say I really feel you. I really feel you. Yeah, so
Thank
thanks for
you.
sharing. Yeah, yeah.
Like, it's amazing, isn't it? The power of um, seeing your experiences, your fears, what you see as flaws or um, barriers or kind of areas where you're not skilled. It's lovely to see when someone mirrors that back and says, "Oh no, hey, we all have shit months. We all have shit times. No one knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
We're all just trying."
Hmm. Yeah. I totally feel that too. You know, it's like we're not on our own with this.
Mm-mm.
Not on our own. So yeah. Thanks
Yeah.
for sharing. So love, as we're here to talk about rage and perimenopause and relationships and neurodiversity and how all of these things come together and play out. And I really want to just s- introduce you a bit more fully. So for anyone who doesn't know you, doesn't know your work, just share with us, Trace, what's the essence of your work? As I know it's also evolved over the years as well as all of our work does. So yeah, what's really calling you at the moment? What's your
Mm.
passion?
Relationships. Yeah, that's my life's work, I've realized. So I am a psychotherapist in private practice in the Southern Highlands, and I work with relationships with people Australia-wide. Um, and I use a lot of the beautiful Gottman's work, and they designed their method to be used in immersive practices. So they call it the marathon. I don't, because the thought of running a marathon makes me terrified. So
Ah,
I call what I do the relationship retreat. Um, and yeah, over the years, I've realized the way I work best and following on from the research results, how the therapy works best. And I've, this is, this is it now. I love bringing people in, and I say couples because even if people are in non-monogamous relationships, I would still generally work primarily with two people. And, um, and so, yeah, I work with couples Australia wide who are looking at trying to get their relationship to be more like the one they dream of, the one they deserve. And when we're doing that, a lot of the work is looking at what they've learned previously and unlearning that. So, whether that's what they've learned about themselves, what they've learned about their worth, what they've learned healthy relationship looks like, what they've learned love looks like, what a boundary is. So a lot of the work is around discovering that and then helping them decide, do we still want to be with each other? I always say to couples when they walk in, my aim is not to keep you together. My aim is to support you both to get to know yourselves as well as you possibly can, stripping back all the shit you've been told by society, by parents, by whatever, and figuring out which bits you truly believe, which are authentic, which are relevant to you, and then learning how to communicate that really clearly and effectively to their partner whilst standing alongside and witnessing their partner go through the same um, journey. And it's honestly, it's such a privilege to be able to sit in the room with people and watch that happen. So I always say it's unethical for me to be like, hey, you'll be together after this. But, I guess results speak for themselves. If most people were leaving my room less happy or less in less nourishing, enriching, authentic relationships, then I probably wouldn't still be doing the work. So that's my passion, is bringing people together so that they can really explore who they are, find out who they are, and find out who the other person is. And then they can, with my help, create the new version of what they want.
Mm.
Um, and with that work, I think they say that if you're a writer, write what you know. And I think with therapy, uh, over the years, I've ended up attracting what I am. And you'll have heard this a million times, but I describe myself as a neurodivergent, queer, married to a cis man, cis straight man, parent who has had a lot of trauma in their childhood and has experienced a lot of loss and grief, and is now in the middle of their perimenopause journey. So I tend to attract a lot of neurospicy people. Um, and I see a lot of people coming to me at this season of life
Mm.
of perimenopause. So yeah, that's me.
Thanks for
And I'm
sharing.
scarce in case anyone can't tell.
I love your accent. Um, so yeah, I'm really fascinated by this. So what is it about this time of life then that, I'm sure everyone listening's got their own ideas and their own experiences, but like in a nutshell, what is it for you that you see that's like where people just can't go on anymore? What's the reckoning point?
I mean, I guess it's different for every person and every couple, but I think a theme that I see often is the person who has, because often, well, in most relationships, it's not 50-50. Most relationships just don't work that way. You'll have skill sets and parts of the role of being a partner, running a life, maybe being a parent if your parents. You'll have parts that naturally you gravitate to, and so does your partner. And in a healthy relationship where equality is important and balance is important, you'll have both kind of over periods of time revisited and shifted, and you'll feel like it's working in a balanced way for you. Often what I see when I'm working with people who are coming to me because of that particular phase of life, it's been that one person in the relationship, often the person who birthed, has been the main caregiver. And I think that, if you're born with a womb and all of those ovaries and lovely emotions that come with that, you're naturally going to try to build community, try to keep the peace. That's who you are. And so what I see is these couples come to me and one person is saying, she's starts to go nuts. you know, she's complaining about all these things that for years have been fine. And the person who is going through perimenopause or maybe is at the other side of it or whatever is like, yeah, I was putting up with a load of shit. I was not speaking my truth. I was taking on more than I was comfortable with. And what this period of my life, this transition phase, prompted me to do was audit. And guess what? You aren't looking as healthy as you were before. And so that's, I guess, what a theme is that I see. And
Yeah.
I do really hold compassion for both parties because obviously, for one, for a long time, things haven't been going well. But then if you look at the other person, they're there scratching their head going, I didn't bloody know.
Yeah.
You seemed happy.
You never said anything. What changed? Yeah. Oh, I love that. And I think it's so interesting. And I'm so happy we're having this conversation because, like, I don't know what the stats are, but there is research that shows something like the highest proportion of um women getting divorced is like around the time of perimenopause or
Mm,
something, like 40s, 50s, something like that. Don't know exactly. But it's a phenomenon, isn't it? And it's something that we talk about in this kind of cycle health world of like shit's blowing up a little bit. And like you said, all the things you've been tolerating, the disconnection there maybe was between what you really know to be true versus what you're putting up with and how you're living, that's really coming up for questioning. And I love how you described it. Just done a little audit and suddenly you're the problem. And it's
Your
like, well,
position
okay.
in terms of what you take seems to have increased.
Yeah. So, I think that's something to, we need to be aware of and then have some tools and support and like you say, understanding that if someone's going through this, they're not alone. Like you said before, when we share these stories, it's like, oh, okay, yeah, it's not just me. There's something in it there for us to look at and listen to and work on. So what I'd really love to ask you is, you said like when we were sort of talking about this and planning this conversation, like the rage is real.
Mm.
And like, so rage, is something that, it's framed as like being destructive and, female rage. It's like, oh, that time of the month, hormonal, and it's a bit of taboo and shame around it. But from your perspective and experience and what you've seen with, in your practice maybe too, as well as personally, why do you feel like rage is something that we really need to be like exploring and listening to, and why is it really coming up in relationship at this sort of time as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing that I wanted to touch on around people's experiences of perimenopause is I just really spoke about how it shows up in your relationship, but let's not forget that the symptoms, the experience, the physical, visceral experience that people have is very real. You add on it and the neurodivergence, and that is through the roof. So it's not just a case of, oh, I've made some decisions. It's like also my capacity to deal with crap is way lower because I am physically not feeling myself. Um, Psychologically, your brain is shifting and changing. And emotionally, if we all think about how we feel at certain times in our cycle with emotions, all of that stuff is so much stronger. And so, um, you are really asking a person with very low capacity to show up in areas of their lives that weren't working to begin with. And so they were probably using a lot of their capacity to kind of mask that and get through. And again, if we talk about masking, looking at neurodivergence, wow, like the amount of effort and energy that a lot of neurodivergent people are putting into masking so that they can just get along in a neurotypical world is huge. So if you think about all of that, and then you put in the standard things that make a lot of us kind of lose it anyway, laundry on the floor or dishes being left for you or, the mental load of having a home and family together being left to you, then you're going to have big emotional responses to that. And I love when I'm working with people in the room. Uh, Again, I don't like to gender things, but I do feel like a lot of men will say they're angry about things, and that's because it's really normalized for a man to feel angry, but it's not normalized for him to feel much else. And so he will tend to filter a lot of his emotions through "I'm angry." So we spend time picking that apart and learning more about what different emotions feel like and what meaning we make of them. And on the flip side, a lot of uh, women or non-binary people are kind of viewed through that lens of anger is the one you're not supposed to have. It's not, doesn't fit with the way society wants to see us. So, um, I feel that when perimenopause hits and you're like, fuck off, I will be whoever. I actually haven't got time to wonder what you want me to act like. Just going to respond. Therefore, I feel like the rage and the anger that we might have felt at other times and then masked or changed it into something else more palatable, we just don't have time. So I think generally we start to see it as part of a person not watching how they express their emotions. Um, but also when we think about that transition, that season of our life, and think about from a life cycle perspective what the reason is for it, it's like, yeah, this is time. You are shifting your skin, your role doesn't focus on making humans and growing them into grown-ups and making that community. It's now time for you to go and live a different type of life. And so naturally your hormones shift to try and help you be a little bit more focused on self, be able to put more boundaries up. So, that kind of physiological reason that it's there in the first place is meant to do that. It's meant to say, start being more selfish, start looking out for you. And therefore, rage and anger and all of those emotions that might sometimes risk our relationships start to feel more accessible to us. And we want it. But what we don't want to do is not be aware of it or be scared of it to the point where it blows shit up for us when we don't want it to.
I love that so much. I love that perspective that these emotions and new perspectives and new ways of relating to those emotions is what we need in that as we're moving into that new phase of life. And I really relate to that bit about what you said about it's something that we've masked for so long anyway, as being like, a good girl, nice, polite, fitting in. And then add neurodivergence on the top and, just how much masking is required. And then it's just like all of those masks just start falling off. And it's like, "Mhm, I'm not doing that anymore." So I'm relating really hard to that. And for me, there's like so many triggers around my home where it's like you said, the laundry, the mess, the like coming home and it's like, oh my God, you've not done a single thing while I've whether that's true or not, but not in the way that not when my beady eyes are picking up all the mess. It's like, what have you been doing? And so there's a lot more impatience that can bubble up for me and can easily flip into like a bigger swell of emotion as well. So I really relate to a lot of what you were just saying. And I'm really curious then, like, if when we're and like, I'm just gonna make a bit of an assumption here as well that women particularly, who are listening to this, um, and if you've been listening to this podcast for a while, then you'll know that we're really here talking about, embracing our full self and all of our emotions as teachers and listening to our bodies and expressing our truth and, being the full versions of ourselves. And yet, it's like as much as we learn to do that for ourselves and kind of practice that, taking it into relationship and being met in a healthy way, in a supported way, and expressing those bigger emotions like rage and anger and grief and etc. can be so disruptive when the other person's not versed in how to meet you in that. And so I'm curious, Trace, if you've got experience or tips or if there's anything you'd like to offer, me, I put my hand up myself as like, I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on how we can move through that part of it as well, like in relationship where we might be becoming more comfortable with our emotions and even their emotions too. But when you've got a partner who, even regardless of gender, isn't comfortable maybe or sure of how to meet you and hold you in that. How do you navigate that kind of coming together in this new way?
Yeah, I mean, I guess it's that I think that's why I see a lot of couples in this season is because if you were part of a relationship where you guys communicated really well, you you had strong emotional intelligence, you welcomed emotion, you welcomed reflection and shifts in balance of who does what, then you're probably not going to come and see me. Um, I never had that. And, I've been a therapist for years and was in therapy pretty hard for most of my life and still am loving. I just can't think of anything better than going to see someone and saying, "Right, let's talk about me for the next hour." So yeah, I've done a lot of work. And yet, you know, you and I have spoken about this previously. Um, I look back now on my journey with the ability to reflect 'cause there's been some distance and look at the fact that my relationship went through such a big overhaul a couple of years ago now, and that was part of my peri journey. Um, and it needed to happen, you know? It's not like I had this perfect relationship, peri came along and nearly messed it up. It was like there have been things going on in my relationship and things going on personally for me, like I said before, I've had a lot of trauma in my childhood and background and had a late diagnosis of ADHD. So I've spent a long time trying to understand myself, um, trying to have compassion for myself and reduce the shame I felt about the way I showed up in the world and fear about the way I showed up in the world. Um, so there was a lot of that still happening for me and in my relationship, even though we put a lot of work and effort into our relationship, looking back to that time, we still, we hadn't really mastered how to communicate properly. Joe had work he needed to do, he had his own life experience that had formed part of his beliefs and views on what love looked like and his own self-worth. And even though I'd done a lot of work, uh, you know, each time you go to therapy or any form of healing for yourself, you show up as you are then. So 5 years later, doing the same therapy or the same healing work, you're going to show up differently. So even though, like, I can imagine a listener thinking, "Oh, what? So you just need to be in therapy forever?" It's like you don't need to, but if you're into physical fitness, not like me, I wish I was, you'll probably change the way you train regularly because your body changes, your needs change, whatever. It's the same with emotions and psychology. So when I look back now and I think 2, 3 years ago and look at how close we came to calling it quits, and how horrible that felt, I can see the ingredients and I can see the work we did, and I'm so glad we did because, we were just talking, it was his birthday a few days ago, and we went away for a weekend, and we were both like, "We're just so lucky, like, we love each other so much." Like,
Mm.
I'm so into him, and more so probably than when I first met him, you know? And if you'd have asked me that 3 years ago and said, "Do you reckon you can have a stronger relationship in 3 years?" I mean, I would have said, "Potentially," because I know who we are and underneath it, how much we wanted each other. And I also know that there's therapy around to help, but I didn't know if we'd access it all. I didn't know if we'd both have the energy, if we'd both be ready to do the work that was required. But we were, and it did, and it worked out great. But yeah, looking back, I can see that what needed to happen was that my perimenopause came into my life and was like, what doesn't work for you anymore? You've spent your life fawning because that was my trauma response. If you grow up in a household where you you aren't emotionally well, or physically or psychologically safe, you learn to read the emotions of people around you. And if your caregivers or your parents aren't regulated in their emotions or are part of the trauma, you learn that as a kid, regulating your own emotions isn't what you need to do. Regulate theirs, map theirs, know what's going on. That's when you're going to know whether you're safe. But that's not true emotional regulation. That's just survival. You know, you are trying to go, are you mad today? Are you happy? How quickly will it shift? So I'd spent my life fawning, and watching people's emotions. And that caused problems for me in my relationships because I would very rarely feel secure, whether that was a friendship or romantic relationship. I would very often feel like if my friend or my partner was sad or mad, it was my fault and I wasn't safe anymore and they were about to disconnect from me. So there was a lot of work that I had to do on that when I look back 3 years ago and go, part of the problem of me having my needs met in the relationship is that I don't only want my partner to show up and meet my needs. I want them to be happy about it, show me they're happy about it, never be sad or upset or feeling like they're being put upon. So that's a lot to ask of someone, you know, meet all my needs and be bloody happy about it and show me you are. And so there was a lot of work there for me when I look back around, uh, I guess, being able to harness all of this rage, harness this selfishness that perimenopause was allowing me, and make sure that I um, used it to strengthen my inner self, strengthen my resolve and um, awareness of my capabilities and this the truth that I would be safe if someone was unhappy with me. So that was my own work to do. And I knew Joe had to do his, but at that point, I was like, I've been trying to manage you and me and the kids for years. I'm not going to do it anymore. So that rage that I'm done, I don't want this anymore. You figure out what you need to do helped us get to that point of, okay, this is super serious and we need to make some changes. So then I guess that allowed us to do that audit and reflect on what was working. And obviously we went to therapy again together as a couple and individually. Um, and I guess when you're saying what can people be doing, it's like, you know, I was able to share with my partner that hormonally, internally, what was going on for me. I was able to let them know that, and I was able to let them know I didn't really understand it. Um, so I could not help them help me because again, no thanks, been doing that forever. You sort it out yourself. But that communication allowed us to add some stuff into what was going on for us. It wasn't just we're in this shit place. It was like we're in a shit place and some external things are happening that we need to fix. But let's look through the lens of I'm also going through something, and that might make the way I'm showing up different, sometimes for the better, sometimes not. Um, and what helped me was things like working with you, working with Sophie, educating myself on what was happening for me, finding the right practitioners who were affirming and collaborative. And so that helped me understand what was going on. And then I could communicate that to my partner. So he knew. And then we took that to therapy and we worked really hard because both of us realized that, if we were looking at it, we could see the thing that we wanted to keep was us. And not everyone is in that situation. So when I talk like this, I'll often have that disclaimer that when I'm talking and when I'm sharing stories that people may see as advice, this is about relationships that are free from abuse. So if you feel like you're in an abusive relationship, I'm sure at the end of this show you'll have show notes. So there's resources we'll put there for if you're not sure. But if you are in a free from abuse, reasonably healthy relationship, then that's what you want to be doing. You want to be letting them in, sharing what's going on for you, and telling them that things are likely to change and that they don't need to take it personally. Not all of it, some of it. Some of it's personal,
Some of
people.
it is.
Some of it's very personal. But again, even that, like, even if you can kind of start using that in your conversations, is this about me, do you think? Or is this a bigger picture thing? Maybe don't ask in the moment. You don't want a cup flying at you. Joke.
Joke.
Do not throw cups at your partner. But yeah, so being educated yourself, making sure that you've got the right supports that you deserve, and then sharing your journey as much as you want to with your partner so that they can know there's a bigger picture happening here. And they're going to get a chance to know if they want to come along. You know, they don't have to, but there's probably going to need to be change if they do. And that's where I think some compassion for the partner is helpful as well. Like, things have changed drastically for them, and they're not really, they don't probably have the same support we do, you know. Community is important. And like you and I shared just before we started recording, like, I felt really alone before, and I felt not alone after we'd spoken, and more normalized and less scared of, shit, am I going downhill again? Is depression on the way? Oh no, I'm talking to Charlotte. She's feeling similar. But, you know, they might not have that because they don't even know it's a thing. They don't know they're supposed to talk to anyone about it. So education, support yourself, and communicate with your partner.
Oh, I love that, Trace. There's so much in there. Thank you. That's really amazing. That's so rich. Oh, and just like little light bulbs going off for me left, right, and center as well. And yeah, just really hearing that. It's like, and I'm sort of getting the sense that, I guess, distilling that even further is like, there's the outward piece, and you know, in a relationship you can say, you know, it's stressful, we're in this circumstance, there's XYZ going on, like what can you change outside of yourself? But there's also that piece of like, know yourself and get the support and understand what you're going through. um like you say, people without, you know, female hormones, they're not going to go through these shifts and these crazy rides that hormones bring us on, that lose that predictability as well, and can be a lot more unpredictable, and you know, chopping and changing, and surprising. But ultimately understanding that perimenopause is going to be this journey of like showing you the truth of your life, and who you are, and like you said before, like what you really want out of life and what you really want out of your relationship. And I think that when we um maybe think that it's not started as well, like, you know, I'm turning 40 this year and I can already feel like, I'm like, is it perimenopause or am I just a miserable bitch? Because I feel like I've been on this kind of path for a while of like cutting out shit that's not serving me. And it's kind of scary to think like, you know, there's going to be quite a few more years left of, I'm like, I'm not, I wouldn't say I was even in perimenopause yet, but it's like, wow, where's this going to go? But I just really feel like working as a team, like you said, communicating, letting the other person in. And whilst they're not going to understand, and it's not your job as such to educate, we can let them in and just let them know what we know. But I really hear that, like, support is so essential. One, you don't feel like you're alone, and you've got some shared understanding and bigger picture perspective of the whole thing. But just I just know, like, when we've worked with you before as well, Trace, just learning like communication skills and being able to relate, not from that wounded place, but from that place of like let's listen to each other, let's try and see it from each other's point of view. How can I communicate clearly? And even if I'm being passionate and I'm full of rage right now, how can I take some self-responsibility for this too? And like just try to relate from a place that's not all about blame of the other person, but looking inwards as well, and sort of, yeah, feeling like you're able to say like, yeah, it's my fault. I overstepped a bit there, or I was out of order there. But having that ability to really speak that truth as well when it really comes through has been incredibly helpful for us over the years. And no doubt we're gonna need more support for sure to keep walking this together as well. Because like, things have been really challenging um for me and my husband too. And we've had really like challenging times and, holding a lot as parents and learning more about ourselves and how our brains work. And Phil's had a ADHD diagnosis, and I don't have one, but I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure I know what my brain's up to.
Self-diagnosis.
Yeah, self-diagnosis. Exactly. As well as all like the kids too. So yeah, I feel like learning to relate from that point of view as well is like a real game changer. And so one question I'd love to ask you, Chase, is you said that you've been late diagnosed with ADHD. And how does that piece of the puzzle, the neurodiversity piece, um, like how does that show up in your relationship? Like, 'cause I
Mm.
know that your husband's neurotypical, isn't he, right? Is that true?
Well, he's ummed and ahed before
Right.
self-diagnosis as well around
Yeah.
autism.
Okay.
I see signs of that, and I also see signs of neurotypical behavior. So I don't know, like he hasn't decided to get a diagnosis. I have one. So hello. And same as we've got a neurospicy family. So we have a young one with ADHD, a young one autistic. And, sometimes I'm like, this is not fair. Can't they spread it all out a bit,
Yeah.
Um, but then for the most part, and I get that not everyone is where I am, but for the most part, honestly, in our family, we just see it as a celebration, not a superpower, but a different way of being that has so many positives to it. And I guess my taking my kids through that journey of diagnosis has really helped me see the beauty, because we all know we're much more critical of ourselves. We love the shit out of our kids. And if we're really lucky, we do the work so that we can transfer some of that and start to parent ourselves, which is where I am. And it's a great place to be, where you show yourself that same kindness and compassion, and you celebrate yourself similarly to the way that you do your kids. So I guess how ADHD shows up in the relationship connected to perimenopause, like I was saying before, there is such a huge increase from symptoms that ADHD people uh, report during perimenopause. I think Dr. Mary Claire has done some stats on it, and it's like 80% of ADHD women say perimenopause worsens their ADHD symptoms. So, God, how are we like still getting up in the morning and doing it all? It's amazing. But if you think about that, it's something else that is draining your capacity. So again, I'll often be working with couples to support them understand each other's diagnoses. And then I might be working with them to support them to understand their different life transitions. So, uh, in certain circumstances, I'm supporting them through both, understanding a diagnosis and a person's journey through menopause. Um, and so for me, it shows up in that uh, all of those all of those parts of me that I grew up feeling shame about, fear around, and the need to mask, which again, I only got my diagnosis not long before I started going through perimenopause. So for me, it's shown up as me trying to educate myself and my partner on both of those things at the same time.
Mm.
And I guess when I'm in it, it feels different. But from a therapy perspective, like as a therapist, I think what I often see is when the partner who isn't experiencing menopause or is or isn't neurodivergent, just them having some understanding of, oh, this isn't always about me. When they are touched out or when they go into the room and slam the door because the house is noisy or messy, or when they don't want to have sex with me because they're overloaded, um, or whether that's a peri symptom or something, just them being able to understand that can be really healing. And then you watch them shift from defensive because they feel like they're being criticized to, oh, I never realized it was like that for you. What can I do? How can I show up differently? So I kind of forgot the main question. ADHD.
Yeah,
And I
me too.
think
I'm
I
like,
kind of sort of
backtrack.
answered two questions that weren't what you asked. That's how ADHD and perimenopause shows up, people.
Love that so much. I think you pretty much answered it. I
Okay.
forgot my own question now, but it was basically how does ADHD influence, yeah, relationships and communication and like, through this time as well, like you said, with perimenopause. And yeah, I feel like what you just said there is so helpful because I think, it can feel like, if you're questioning, like, I guess I'm at that place of like questioning, is it hormones? Is it neurodivergence? Is it just life? Um, and so like for me to have more understanding and compassion around like, well, maybe, and even without a diagnosis, because we're, doing that for all the kids and I'm gonna come last in the queue
Yeah.
basically. And
Bring
it's
on
like, well,
perimenopause. You'll come first.
yeah,
You'll be
I
like,
love
get out the
that.
way, kids. This is my
Add straight to the
appointment.
front of the queue. Um, yeah, just even that, like, okay, even when you don't have an answer, even if you're wondering, like, I feel like the gaslighting that we can do to ourselves. This is something I've been doing to myself a lot. It's really corrosive. And I think if you've got a partner as well who can just simply hear you in your curiosity and your questioning, like you said, Joe's questioning, like what his brain's doing. Um, so even when you don't know, it's like, okay, well, maybe it is and maybe it isn't, but this is what's real and this is what's here right now. Like, how can we work around this and have a bit of support? And like I've only just said to Phil recently, it's I was like I've known this for a long time, but it only really crystallized for me, like I said about the noise stuff. I was like, when I run off to my bedroom and shut the door and I'm so overwhelmed because the house is so noisy, and then I'm like hiding in bed and I can't get out of bed for a while. I said, I'm actually having a bit of a shutdown. And I am not ignoring you. I'm not avoiding the family. I'm not like quitting on all of my parenting jobs and just sort of tapping out like you all too much from a critical point of view. I'm like, I actually feel like I just actually need to go and have some time to let my body recover, sort of. I was like, and I will come back out. I was like, but don't take it personally because it's not about you. It's about the fact that my body is like in total chaos. And he was like, oh. really? He's like, oh, I just thought you were just fucking furious with me and
Mhm.
you were like sick of us all and you didn't want to be with us anymore. And I was like, no, I didn't have language for it and I didn't understand it. But I've been learning more. We've just had our eldest daughter diagnosed as ADHD, so she's autistic
Mhm.
and ADHD. And so just being able to learn more from her and what she's going through, I can see like the bits and pieces where I'm like, oh, that's me. That's me. And so even just being able to say, like, I don't know if anything's formal or official, like, I don't know, but I can see, like, I'm not crazy. I'm not lazy. I'm not like, this is not the ways that these things get perceived. I'm like, there's probably a reason for this that's beyond my control. And this isn't a problem with the relationship, actually. I just need you to know this and support me in that and meet me in that and like love me in that rather than see it as something where I'm rejecting you. And that's made a real difference, even probably just over the last month or so, to have that kind of awareness and understanding. And it's been a real game changer, like already, just really quickly. So I can really feel how like what you're saying, just circling back to, your point of like, um, just that curiosity of like, how can I support you today? How can I understand you? Like, and your partner maybe being able to do a bit of learning themselves as well on, proactively. I don't think
Mm.
guys are particularly that way inclined, are they? It always seems to be down to, maybe I'm making a stereotype here, but I feel like it's usually us who are doing the learning and the asking those bigger, deeper questions and then having to share the knowledge of what we know. But it feels nice when somebody can say, like, yeah, I understand that and I can just meet you in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's 4 things I wanna say,
Oh, yeah.
but
Go.
I'm obviously not gonna remember them. We'll just start. Um, so something that's come up a couple of times that we've been taught, so I'm gonna make that point first because it's obviously saying hello, is that, I know for me, I've often looked at this like, "You don't know what this is like, you don't have to deal with this." But on the flip side of that, we're both getting asked to change our relationship, and I've got all this inner help. I've got all of these inside changes occurring that are kinda helping me navigate it. He's just standing there going, "What next? What am I supposed to do next?" So, if I can have some compassion and maybe even some positive regard for the fact that perimenopause is doing this for me, not to me, then I actually get extra help, you know? That's one way to look at it. People who are listening might be turning off right now going, "Well, fuck you, don't you dare tell me to look at this positively, or see this as like something I get to have and they don't get to have it." But again, it's not if you find yourself very stuck on who's the worst done by in your relationship, that's something that probably needs to be looked at as well. Because if you are in your relationship, then are you there because you want to be, or are you there because you just don't want to leave? If you're there because you want to be, then you should be looking at your partner like someone who's on your side, and you both getting access to beauty and nourishment and chances wins for everyone. And so instead of looking at it like who's worst off, which again, this is part of why we need to make changes because often there is someone in the relationship who feels like they have been carrying the burden. So, um, i- if you can be addressing those things as they are, specifically to what they are, rather than this big whole, I get it, shit, you get it, great, then yes, we've got that inner help that they don't have. Um, but also, yep, there's the 1 point and the other 3 have gone. I'm sure they'll come back. But, oh, yeah, that was the second of the 4. It's just come back in. Is that, I now see my relationship and my partner as a source of support, nourishment, collaboration. And it's taken us a while. And like I've watched him shift with that as well. It's like uh he is getting to have a different role too. Like again, when I work with couples, one of the things I'll often hear is the parenting will be there won't be equality around how decisions are made, who cares for the kids. And there's this assumption we make like the other parent, the one who didn't birth, the one who's not the primary carer, gets it easier. But then when I'm looking at it from both sides, that parent's often saying, I feel left out. I feel like I don't have a say. So if we're looking at this shift and saying, we both get to reflect on our roles. You might get to have more say in things and more control over certain things that happen on the emotional and relational side of our family. Then, let's not just assume our partner's going to be like, fuck that. They might be like, great, I want that. And it's sometimes the way it's delivered, the way it's communicated. Um, that's the make or break of it. So if we can try and lose assumption, be curious with our partner, show up asking them what it's like for them, and recognizing that they might need more guidance than we need about what's happening, and that they can be a source of support for us. Like when I said to you before about how I've been feeling, um, and that was another of my points that's come back, is we're saying like, oh, we want our partner to have compassion for us and understand and not judge us. But like, hello, how much are we doing that ourselves? I
Mm.
know that for this past month with my mental health kind of being much more chaotic and low mood than normal, I spoke to Joe about it this morning for the first time, because for the month, I know now, like, oh, I've probably had a bit of shame about that. There's probably been a bit of fear that if I talk about that and I say that it's not been great for a month and I can't blame it on my cycle, then what am I admitting to? So I decided to have a chat with him this morning over coffee and just said, oh, my mood's really low. And I realized that I just trusted that he'd hear me and that I didn't need to have a plan. And, it was a beautiful conversation. And we've had that conversation about me having a low mood for a month, which in the great scheme of things, if I look back at, you know, I've had periods of clinical depression in my past, mostly around hormones, so birthing and things like that. And they've been big and really tough and very dark. And here I am, I've had a low mood for a month. And, I'm aware of it. I'm curious about what it means. And I've spoken to my partner about it in a, hey, just flagging, just letting you know. And, I got a text an hour later saying, hey, let's have a chat about what we can do later. So he's on my side. He wants things to be good for me and good for us. And sometimes being, not having an agenda of how what the outcome's gonna be. I'm gonna tell you I'm low and you better act this way and you better do this. And if you don't, then it's because you don't love me. And you think a lot of that's coming in from internally.
Mm.
So because we are strong and solid and we communicate regularly, um, and we've got a lot of warmth towards each other, then, I felt like I could trust that just letting him know something and saying, I don't really know what I'm asking you, would, I was lucky enough to know that that would probably lead to him helping me and just,
Mm.
being my mate.
Yeah, that's it. It's like if you're both there, and like you said, if you're in a relationship that's predominantly like, fundamentally a healthy relationship, like you both want to make it work. You got to believe or affirm that you both want to make it work. And like you say, you're both there to be supports and mates for each other and to work as that team. And so I just really love that example of like how you took that from something you're living and experiencing yourself and almost, almost fessed up to it in a way, but just shared that, brought it out into the open where they're able to say, yeah, I'm here and you're not alone and I'm ready to walk with you in that. And I just think that like I can relate to that too of like, oh, what if I say to Phil, like I feel like I might be, feeling this way or wondering about myself, like how's he going to take that? And instead of just living from that space of like getting worked up in my own head and making assumptions about how he's going to receive it, like just letting it actually happen, asking him, putting it out there, and then letting him step in. I think that's it, isn't it? It's what you said before about saying, oh, I don't have the capacity, or, I'm used to making all these decisions. It's this time for renegotiation. And I just really felt this sense of create space to let them step in, like let them step in so we don't have to hold it all,
Yeah,
for
don't assume
ourselves, for
they
our
don't want
family.
to.
Yeah. Love that. Yeah. All right, Chase. Well, thank you, love. Just as we start to wrap up, if there's one thing that you would leave with listeners, what's the takeaway you would leave for people if they're in this place of like really feeling that they're at this in this crux, in this place of knowing they need support, and what was the first step be?
The final message would be, there is hope and positivity around this season and this change, and being kind to yourself, being compassionate to yourself. Start with you first, start with you accepting and loving what's going on. And also that there's lots of help and support out there if you want to get it around your kind of transition, that peri part. But yeah, that this can mean a stronger relationship at the other side if you use this as, okay, so this is the time for reflection, transition, potentially changing roles and learning how we can, go towards the next chapter. Esther Perel always talks about the fact that, I think she's using American stats. 80% of people, I'm making these stats up, but a lot of people will have 3 marriages in their lifetime. And she talks about how she's had 3 marriages with the same person. And I love that. I feel similar. I feel like we're 15 years in, and I feel like we've just entered our second phase, like our second chapter.
Love
So yeah,
that idea.
that would be it, I guess. There's hope it can end up. This can be a time for you to really audit what works for you and make that change.
Mm. Thanks so much, love. Thank you for sharing. Thanks for being with us. You're available to work with people, aren't you, and support them
Yes, definitely.
online. Is it all online or you do in
No,
person
no.
too?
So the immersive work I don't offer online. They
Oh, okay.
either come to me in the Highlands for 2 full days, or I travel to them. But all of the assessments that we do prior to that can all be done online, and the follow-up appointment can be done online. So yeah,
Yeah.
I would say 40 to 50% of the people I work with are not in New South Wales. So people travel and use that time to retreat their relationship.
Beautiful.
Or yeah, I can guess them.
Amazing. Thanks so
Mm,
much, love.
Thank
Thank you.
you. Oh, thanks to all your listeners.
Yeah. Thanks for being with us, everyone. Thank you so much for listening, my love. To reclaim your wild feminine power, magic, and flow is an act of sacred rebellion, and it's needed now more than ever. Share this episode with a sister, share on socials, leave a review, and support this podcast and movement to grow and deepen around the world. To discover, activate, and embody your sacred feminine leadership archetype, take the quiz now at charlottequanto.com/quiz to find if you're a mystic, muse, connector, or challenger to become the feminine leader you're born to be. And until next time, my love, be devoted to your body as guide, your cycle as oracle, and your sisterhood as allies.